everyone wakes up to a rumor spreading across the internet. It claims that one can only stream horror films when their phone battery is at 7%. But the narrator believes one will probably be watching this large-scale adventure horror film when their phone battery is at 0%. Chernobyl Diaries. The narrator first asks a question. Has one ever seen creatures infected by nuclear radiation? And after these creatures mutate, do they pose a threat to humans? Abroad, a group of young men also harbors doubts about this puzzling question. Driven by curiosity, they specifically travel to Ukraine, the northernmost part of the Earth. Because one evening in 1986, a large nuclear power plant named Chernobyl quietly erupted within Ukraine. At that time, countless radioactive substances instantly contaminate nearly 30 kilometers of land. Although the government immediately evacuates the public and seals it off, even today, that mysterious forbidden zone no one dares to enter shows signs of human activity once again. According to local villagers, they not only see terrifying mutated creatures inside, but also every midnight, eerie red lights glow inside the abandoned factory buildings. And all these bizarre phenomena indicate that the abandoned Chernobyl nuclear power plant likely hides some unknown secrets. With excitement, these 6 fearless university students decide to take the risk. They also spend a lot of money to hire a local villager as a guide, just to witness with their own eyes what creatures infected by nuclear radiation truly look like. Following the guide's instructions, the group soon arrives at the foot of the mountain. But what makes Yuri feel strange is that in the past, this place was desolate, with not a single soul in sight. But today, at the entrance, a large number of special forces are stationed. These special forces have sharp eyes, and each is fully armed. It is not hard to see that inside the nuclear power plant, something unusual must have happened. However, knowing the dangers, these university students still insist on going into the tiger's den. The guide, Yuri, does things for money. He can only bite the bullet and take them along a small path. Perhaps sensing danger, Yuri soon parks the car by the river. He does not want to go deeper, so he simply finds an excuse and wants to end this trip early. And this lake full of nuclear wastewater in front of them just happens to be able to dissuade these reckless young men. Saying this, Yuri decisively puts his hand in. He constantly fumbles around in the water. But who would have thought that the next second, his entire arm is suddenly bitten tightly by some terrifying creature. He intends to use a scary trick to teach these young men a lesson. Unexpectedly, they are not scared at all. Instead, they gloat and become even more determined to go deeper. Little do they know, right after they leave, swarms of mutated piranhas suddenly appear in the lake full of nuclear wastewater. Clearly, their joyful journey leads to an extremely perilous hell. Afterward, relying on his knowledge of the terrain, Yuri, who knows the area like the back of his hand, quickly arrives at Chernobyl's residential area. Immediately, countless tall buildings and a giant Ferris wheel standing in the center of the square come into view. Looking at the rusty entertainment facilities, it seems as if time here is paused. The surroundings are overgrown with weeds, presenting a deathly silence. It is hard to imagine what kind of catastrophic disaster the workers living here experienced. With heavy hearts, these people closely follow Yuri's footsteps and continue forward. The desolate scenery combined with the unfamiliar environment makes everything around them increasingly curious to these young people. Unknowingly, they move away from the square and abandon their vehicle. And that unopened car window becomes the last straw that breaks the camel's back. Evening quickly arrives. Less than 2 hours remain until sunset. To leave this dangerous place early, Yuri prepares to lead the team deeper into the building, planning to visit this last attraction before returning the way they came. However, as they step onto the stairs, a dried animal corpse lies conspicuously at the entrance. Seeing the tragic state of the corpse, no one raises questions. Even the usually cautious Yuri pays no attention. He directly pushes open the apartment door and enters. This action, however, will completely doom all team members' lives. After decades of abandonment, the interior of the building is a mess, dirty and smelly. Yuri also constantly reminds everyone not to touch anything inside the house, because some criminals previously made high profits by reselling the furniture from here. But in the end, everyone who bought the furniture mysteriously dies one after another. Since then, no one dares to set foot here again. As he speaks, Yuri suddenly scans the area and discovers a pile of burnt ashes inexplicably stacked in a nearby corner. Seeing the thick smoke that has not yet dispersed, it is clear that someone has been here before. Fearing it will cause unnecessary panic, Yuri thinks for a moment and quickly smooths out the ashes. Then, without a word, he prepares to lead the team away. But before he finishes speaking, from a room ahead, a strange sound suddenly emerges. This chilling scene instantly puts Yuri on high alert. To prevent the tourists from getting hurt, he quickly waves for everyone to stay put, and then he cautiously goes to investigate the cause. However, As Yuri goes deeper inside, a strong brown bear strangely rushes out from the empty corridor. In an instant, everyone's blood runs cold. With their minds blank, they only focus on escaping. However, they do not notice that the brown bear is also scared. So, it seems that even more terrifying creatures than the brown bear must exist in the deepest part of the corridor. The scene shifts. After the recent encounter, the college students are in an uproar. They are both shocked and excited. Now they only want to quickly leave this dangerous place. However, what they fear most comes true. Just as Yuri prepares to return, the minivan, which was fine moments ago, now refuses to start. Upon closer inspection, they discover that something has torn the wiring inside the engine compartment to shreds. But what kind of creature would specifically target wires to bite? Being in the middle of nowhere, they dare not dwell on this thought. Seeing morale gradually disperse, Yuri quickly makes a phone call, attempting to seek outside help. But the result is obvious. The phone here has no signal at all. Time quickly arrives at deep night. 8 hours have passed since they were trapped. Hunger and anxiety make everyone's emotions run high. They start to lose patience and criticize each other, with everyone shifting blame. Immediately, a fierce quarrel erupts inside the car. But immediately after, the huge sound attracts a group of uninvited guests. The sound is like an infant's cry. In the middle of the night, are there ghosts in this nuclear power plant? The pretense of ghosts forces Yuri to no longer tolerate it. Saying this, he pulls out a pistol from the drawer, intending to fight them to the death. Watching Yuri's figure gradually move away, the restless Chris immediately follows him to help. But only 2 minutes pass. A series of intense gunshots then comes from the woods. Soon, the severely injured Chris is carried over by his teammates. The incident happens suddenly, and Yuri, who rushes ahead, disappears into the jungle, his fate unknown. Although no one clearly sees the attacker's appearance, the bloody wounds indicate the attacker is definitely out of the ordinary. However, as the group races against time to bandage Chris, the blonde woman nearby seems to sense something terrifying. Countless mutated rabid dogs rush towards them like fierce tigers, trying to kill them. They repeatedly ram the fragile car body, hoping to feast on them. Fortunately, at the critical moment, the sudden extinguishing of the lights buys the college students a glimmer of hope for survival. Time quickly advances to the next morning. Chris, who has lost too much blood, looks pale and appears to be fading fast. The anxious friends now realize that if they want to stay here, they are undoubtedly waiting for death. After weighing the pros and cons, Away decides to take the remaining team members to a town 30 kilometers away on foot to find help. He leaves the severely injured Chris in the care of his girlfriend, Erin. Afterward, the group embarks on a terrifying journey to escape. Unexpectedly, they stumble upon Yuri's walkie-talkie on a staircase. Looking at the pitch-black basement, Away speculates that the missing Yuri might still be alive. So, without a word, the group prepares for action. They grab iron bars and immediately launch a rescue. Soon, the group fumbles in the dark and finally discovers Yuri at a corner. But unfortunately, Yuri has already been disemboweled, a truly tragic sight. However, before they can even catch their breath, a blood-curdling roar suddenly echoes from outside the corridor. They frantically urge everyone to run. As her teammates frantically flee, the blonde woman reacts too slowly and can only hide behind a wardrobe, trembling in despair. And through the faint light, she finally sees the monster's true appearance. She sees the creature is 8 feet tall and looks strikingly similar to a human. It frantically gnaws on Yuri's corpse. Looking at the dropped handgun, the blonde woman, who is now in the lion's den, decides to seize the opportunity to retrieve it and then decisively rush out of the room. After several gunshots, the group escapes by breaking a window. They dare not linger. They frantically return the same way they came. They realize this because of last night's attack. There is likely more than one monster in this area. This also means that Chris and his companion's personal safety is now in grave danger. Afterward, Away and his group rush to Chris's location. But strangely, their traces are gone from the center of the vast square. Instead, only a seat from the van remains. As they delve deeper, the next scene leaves everyone stunned. They see the multi-ton van thrown dozens of meters away. Even more terrifying is that the scene is a mess, covered in fresh red blood. It is clear how tragic Chris and his companion's fate must be. After a careful search, Blondie, the sharp-eyed girl, finally discovers Chris's camera in a pile of grass. Overjoyed, the group quickly turns it on. Unexpectedly, the content inside once again sends shivers down their spines. Chris tells Natalie he loves her. Natalie replies that she loves him too. She urges him to hold on. Chris says he has something to tell her. He wanted to propose to her. Natalie tells him not to worry and to wait until they get home, believing they will get through this. She asks if Away and the others are back outside. Chris asks if she sees clearly. She replies that she cannot see clearly. She adds that it does not seem to be them.
Is it Paul?
Seeing his former classmate carried away by the monster, a strange sadness wells up in the leader's heart. If the leader had not insisted against everyone's advice on visiting this cursed nuclear power plant, Chris would not have lost his life in vain. Thinking of this, the leader completely breaks down, and disregards his teammates' safety, starting to yell loudly. Even though the people behind him try their best to stop him, they still cannot calm his agitated mood. Unexpectedly, the leader's shout actually gets a response, because he is eager to save someone, and the leader rushes forward first. His companions behind him have no time to think, and can only follow his steps, rushing forward. Following the bloodstains on the ground, the group quickly tracks them to a large sports plaza. Looking at the dead silent venue, with eerie roars constantly coming from all around, the group belatedly realizes that they have fallen into the monster's trap. Seeing countless mutants sweeping in, the leader and his group can only fight and retreat. But soon, the bearded man, who holds a pistol, tries to cover their retreat, and unfortunately becomes the mutants' dinner. Now, the 7-person exploration team only has 3 people left, and the 3 of them, by chance, they also happen to stumble into the monster's lair. Away becomes excited as he sees a diamond ring left on the ground. He also determines that Chris hides behind the curtain in front of them. A monster suddenly appears and catches them off guard. The huge commotion instantly disturbs all the mutants living there. The short-haired girl does not have time to escape and is immediately dragged away to become dinner. Away and the other survivor barely escape and run to a control room resembling a tower. As the scene shifts to the blonde girl, her facial skin rapidly decays. Not only that, Away's eyes also suffer varying degrees of damage. However, what is even more fatal is that just as the two are about to reach the exit, hordes of monsters already surround the passage in front of them. After a struggle, the two unexpectedly unleash unprecedented combat power at the critical moment. Strangely, a group of monsters behind them is about to attack, but for some reason, they scatter and flee as if they sense danger. Could it be that something even more terrifying appears nearby? As Away and the others stumble all the way to the center of the nuclear power plant, they then discover that a large number of heavily armed government troops have arrived at the scene. They are told to put their hands on their heads and step back. They beg for help. They are ordered not to move. The man says his eyes are blurry and he is fading. At the end of the story, because of the language barrier, the man is executed on the spot. The blonde woman, suffering from radiation erosion, is carried on a stretcher and urgently sent to the hospital. In a daze, she seems to notice some abnormal phenomena. The doctors here all look menacing. Not only that, not a single patient is seen in the ward. Only some scientists conducting experiments are present. The bizarre scene puzzles the blonde woman. Later, when she reaches the end of the corridor, this group of life-saving doctors forcibly throws her into a dark, confined space. She asks if anyone is there. Finally, Analyzing the death process of the man and the blonde woman, it seems the local government conducts human experiments with nuclear radiation. Perhaps due to lax control, some mutants escape and successfully hide inside the nuclear power plant. This also explains why checkpoints are suddenly set up in the rarely visited jungle, and a large number of special forces strictly guard the area. Regarding why David and Natalie are brutally killed, the narrator believes the government wants to silence them. After all, the government conducts such inhumane experiments, which would clearly draw strong condemnation from countless citizens. Well, today's story ends here. The narrator is the Movie Briefs. I looks forward to seeing you next time.